9:15 a.m., April 12, 2026. Inside the cold, sterile backstage of the Melbourne Convention Centre, the silence isn't just quiet, it's deafening. Prince Harry stands perfectly motionless, his hand gripping the edge of a heavy velvet curtain just enough to peer through a thin crack. He was promised a global stage. He was promised a return to the kind of relevance that commands world leaders and icons. But as he looks out into the grand ballroom, the reality is a jagged, bitter pill to swallow. Out of the 300 high-tier VIP seats meticulously arranged for this workplace mental health summit, only 42 are occupied. 258 chairs remain draped in somber black cloth, standing like silent headstones for a career that once commanded millions. This is not just a bad turnout. This is the exact moment the million-dollar myth finally shattered. Welcome to a breaking investigative update. Today is April 16, 2026, and we have just obtained the internal audit from Peak Performance Group, the organizers behind this disastrous Australian tour. If you have been following the trajectory of the Montecito brand over the last few years, what happened in Melbourne 4 days ago isn't just another headline, it is a documented financial autopsy. Before we dive into the classified documents that led to Prince Harry's immediate eviction from his luxury suite, hit that like button and subscribe. If you believe the truth about these high-risk speaking tours needs to be told, drop a comment below with the word accountability. It helps our investigative algorithm reach more viewers who are tired of the PR spin. According to eyewitness accounts from the security detail on site, Prince Harry stood frozen for exactly 5 minutes before his walk-on. His face was described as deathly pale, his eyes locked onto a singular object, the digital dashboard on his lead assistant's iPad. The screen displayed the final ticket telemetry. And to put it bluntly, it was a bloodbath. One column showed the original price point of $2,400. The next column showed the final desperate slash to $500 for digital access, just to try and fill the room. The final status read, unsold. A staff member close to the production overheard a haunting exchange in those final seconds before the walk-on music started. Prince Harry reportedly whispered, almost to himself, "I was told the demand was there. Where is everyone?" The assistant, visibly trembling, could only offer a cold, data-driven reality, replying, "Sir, the interest didn't convert. We've been running the ads for 3 weeks. People simply aren't clicking." The devastation was immediate. This wasn't just about a half-empty room, it was about the crushing weight of a $50,000 fee that was supposed to be 20 times higher. We are looking at a 95% collapse in market value in real time. But the real sting came in the form of a legal document delivered via encrypted mail at 10 a.m. that same morning. We have tracked this back to Archwell's headquarters in California. The document is a formal force majeure notification. In the world of high-stakes events, this is the nuclear option. The organizers, Peak Performance Group, officially informed Prince Harry's team that because the revenue failed to cover the basic operational overhead, the contract was being triggered into a deficit clause. The consequence was a screeching halt to the high life. By 2 p.m. that afternoon, while the 42 attendees were still digesting Prince Harry's recycled anecdotes about childhood trauma, his luggage was already being moved out of the presidential suite at the Park Hyatt. The directive was sharp and uncompromising. To mitigate the massive financial loss, Prince Harry was relocated to a standard corporate hotel near the airport. No private entrance, no dedicated security floor, just a disgraced prince in a room that costs $300 a night. This is the Melbourne fracture. For years, the narrative was that Prince Harry was a global draw, a leader in the mental health space who could command the same rooms as former presidents. But the internal registration report tells a different story. It shows that out of the 42 people who actually showed up, 35 were there on complimentary media passes or industry invites. Only 7 people in the entire city of Melbourne actually paid their own money to hear him speak. As we sit here on April 16th, the fallout is spreading. The authority staircase is collapsing. When a speaker cannot fill a 300-seat room, even after a 70% price cut, they are no longer an asset. They are a liability. The legal mechanism is now in motion under the Protocol 12 guidelines of the Crown Estate's recent branding update. Any commercial failure of this magnitude triggers a review of the Royal Association. But that wasn't the whole story. Stay tuned as we move into the next phase of this investigation. We are looking at phone records that suggest Prince Harry spent the entire night of the 12th trying to reach a legal team in London, only to find the doors firmly shut. The question isn't just why the room was empty. The question is what happens to a prince when the world stops paying to listen. The fundamental question haunting the industry today is simple. How does a global icon lose 95% of his market value in less than 5 years? To understand the devastation in Melbourne, we have to look at the speaker fee erosion mechanism. This is a cold, calculated financial downward spiral that the public is only just beginning to see. This isn't just a bad week for Prince Harry. It is a systemic rejection by the global corporate elite. Let's pull back the curtain on what experts call the activation phase. In 2021, fresh off the exit from London, the demand for Prince Harry was at a fever pitch. He successfully anchored his brand at the $1 million mark per appearance. At that time, major financial institutions and tech giants were willing to pay what some called the royal tax. They weren't paying for expert insights on mental health. They were paying for proximity to the crown and the sheer curiosity of a prince, unfiltered. For 18 months, the strategy worked. But then came the repetition phase of 2023 and 2024. This is where the foundation began to crack. Behind closed doors at major PR firms in London and New York, a red list began to circulate. We have heard from insiders at top-tier talent agencies who claim the feedback from corporate clients was becoming dangerously consistent. One report summarized the sentiment perfectly: "We paid for a visionary leader, but we got a therapy session." The market grew fatigued. The stories of personal struggle and palace grievances, which once commanded million-dollar checks, became a repetitive loop. When the content doesn't evolve, the price point cannot be sustained. This led us directly to the disruption phase of 2025 and 2026. When Peak Performance Group signed the contract for the Melbourne Summit, they didn't want the old Prince Harry. Internal communications suggest they explicitly requested data-driven solutions. They wanted research, white papers, and actionable frameworks for workplace wellness that could justify a $2,400 ticket price. The tragic reality is that Prince Harry couldn't provide it. When the organizers realized there was no new data, no peer-reviewed research, and no structural solutions being offered, the rescue clause was activated. The million-dollar dream was scrapped. The $50,000 fee wasn't a paycheck, it was a pity contract designed to ensure he at least showed up so the event wouldn't be canceled entirely. But here is the detail that truly exposes the depth of the devastation. Let's look at the ledger from the Hyatt Regency. To maintain the illusion of high-status security, Prince Harry's private protection detail, a team of 4 elite contractors, submitted an invoice for $62,000 for their 48-hour deployment in Melbourne. His total earnings for the speech were only $50,000. Think about that math for a moment. After taxes and agency commissions, Prince Harry was effectively paying $12,000 out of his own pocket for the privilege of standing in a room full of empty chairs. He wasn't the guest of honor. He was a subsidized attendee at his own show. The self-destruction mechanism is now fully engaged. He's paying for a lifestyle that his own work can no longer fund. As Prince Harry sat in that Hyatt Regency bar in the early hours of April 13th, the numbers on his phone simply didn't add up. And as we dig deeper into the Melbourne fracture, we are discovering that the financial loss is only the surface of the problem. Something far more calculated was happening behind the scenes, involving Meghan Markle's separate appearances in Sydney. It was a move that suggests the brand of two might be officially decoupling. What did Meghan Markle know about the Melbourne numbers before the first ticket was even sold? The answer lies in a series of leaked emails we are currently verifying. The trajectory of this collapse didn't happen overnight. It is a documented financial death curve that we can now trace through a series of cold, hard dates and confidential internal memos. To understand why Prince Harry looked so utterly devastated on that stage in Melbourne, we have to examine the 90 days leading up to the disaster. This is the timeline of a brand in terminal decline. It began on January 10, 2026, inside the boardroom of Archwell in Montecito. We have received reports of a high-level briefing where the quarterly financial projections were presented. The reality was stark. Cash reserves had plummeted to what insiders called a red zone alarm. The burn rate of their lifestyle, combined with the lack of new high-value contracts, created a liquidity crisis. It was in this room, under immense pressure, that the decision was made to greenlight the Australia tour. It was never about a passion for the cause. It was a desperate move for a quick capital injection. But the hammer fell from London just 5 weeks later. On February 15, 2026, the Crown Estate sent a formal 3-page notification that would change everything. The document was clear. All remaining security subsidies and logistical support from the United Kingdom were officially and permanently terminated, effective immediately, even for international business travel. For Prince Harry, this meant the cost of doing business had just tripled. He was now responsible for every dollar of his elite protection, every private jet charter, and every secure communication line. The Australia tour was already underfunded before it even began. By April 1, 2026, the marketing machine in Melbourne kicked into gear. The event was titled The Prince's Insight, and the arrogance of the initial pricing proved to be a fatal mistake. Tickets were set at $2,400 because the team was betting on the old royal magic. The idea that people would pay a premium just to be in the same room as a duke. They were wrong. Fast forward to April 8, 2026, just 4 days before the summit. The internal sales report leaked to our investigators shows a number so low it's almost hard to believe. Only 15 tickets had been sold to the general public. 15. A wave of panic swept through the local organizers. In a last-ditch effort to save face, thousands of dollars worth of tickets were offered for free to local university students and nonprofit workers. The most humiliating detail? Even the students turned them down. They didn't want the insight for free, let alone for $2,000. Then came the morning of April 12. At 9:30 a.m., Prince Harry stepped onto that stage, expecting a roar of applause to mask the empty seats. Instead, he was met with a chilling silence. There was no standing ovation. There was only the muffled sound of 42 people shifting in their chairs, and a distinct, audible whisper from the back of the room. Why is he even still here? The transition from a global leader to a curiosity, and then to a nuisance, was completed in that single silent hour. Which brings us to today, April 16, 2026. As the world watches these clips of a broken prince, our sources in Melbourne confirm that Prince Harry is currently grounded. There is a payment hold on his private travel arrangements. The $50,000 fee has been swallowed by the $62,000 security bill, and the private jet company is reportedly refusing to take off until the balance is cleared. He isn't just devastated, he is effectively stranded in a city that didn't want to hear him speak. And the most haunting part of this timeline? The next stop on the tour has already been quietly removed from the website. The financial ledgers in London, however, are telling a story of unprecedented triumph. This is the cruel contrast. A brutal financial mirror that reveals the true state of the global royal market in April 2026. To understand the depth of Prince Harry's devastation, we have to look at the numbers he is desperately trying to ignore. In the exact same week that Prince Harry stepped onto a stage in front of 42 people, the Royal Collection Trust in London released its mid-April quarterly report. The data is staggering. Revenue from visitors to sites specifically associated with Catherine, Princess of Wales, has surged by an incredible 400%. This isn't just a slight uptick. It is a financial mandate. While Prince Harry is struggling to sell a $500 digital pass, the public is flooding the palace gates, proving that the appetite for the monarchy hasn't diminished. It has simply consolidated. This brings us back to the authority staircase, the cold metrics that determine who stays relevant and who becomes a footnote. First, we look at the YouGov Consumer Confidence Index for April 2026. This is the gold standard for public perception. The data shows that Prince Harry's brand trust metric has hit an all-time low, falling into the -50 zone for the first time in history. For a public figure, this isn't just a bad poll, it is a commercial death sentence. But the real damage is happening in the corridors of the International Association of Speakers, IAS. This is the global Wall Street of public speaking. According to our sources within the IAS, Prince Harry's status has been officially downgraded from a Tier 1 global keynote speaker to a high-risk lead. In the speaking world, this is the equivalent of a credit rating being slashed to junk status. When the IAS flags a speaker as high risk, the insurance premiums for events skyrocket, and the booking fees evaporate. Now we look at the most dangerous element of this financial collapse: the moral turpitude mechanism. This is a standard but lethal clause in high-level endorsement and speaking contracts. It allows a corporation to unilaterally terminate a deal without paying a single cent in compensation if the individual's reputation falls below a certain public decency threshold, or if their marketable authority collapses. Our investigation has uncovered that at least 2 major global sponsors are currently reviewing this specific clause in their agreements with Archwell. The logic is simple: if the public no longer believes in the speaker's authority, the brand itself is damaged by the association. The kill switch has been triggered. Prince Harry is no longer being seen as a catalyst for change. He is being viewed as a liability to the bottom line. The analysis is inescapable. The market hasn't turned its back on the British royal family, it has turned its back on the prince without a palace. Royalty, by its very nature, relies on a carefully maintained sense of mystery, duty, and institutional backing. When Prince Harry traded that mystery for a microphone and a series of personal grievances, he unwittingly traded his value for a commodity the market is now rejecting. Once the mystery is gone, the price drops to zero. And as reports of Meghan Markle's separate luxury appearances in Sydney continue to circulate, a new, and even more chilling, question is beginning to emerge among elite circles in Melbourne. Is Prince Harry the last person to realize that his crown was his only true currency? Behind the closed doors of the hotel suite, the financial disaster of the Melbourne summit transformed into a profound personal crisis. This is the loneliness of the spare, a moment where the carefully constructed image of a powerhouse couple finally buckled under the weight of reality. While the public sees the empty chairs, our investigation has uncovered the silent drama unfolding in digital logs and the quiet corridors of the Hyatt Regency. The most telling detail comes from a highly placed staff member within the hotel's premium services division. According to internal logs, between the hours of 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on the night of the failed speech, Prince Harry made 17 consecutive calls to a single number in Sydney. For over 120 minutes, he attempted to reach Meghan Markle. The result? Total radio silence. While Prince Harry was reeling from the humiliation of a half-empty hall, Meghan Markle was reportedly off the grid at a private, invitation-only launch for a high-end jewelry brand in a secluded Sydney penthouse. This wasn't a scheduling conflict. This was a PR surgical strike. Our sources within the Sydney event circuit confirmed that Meghan Markle's team had been monitoring the Melbourne ticket telemetry for at least 14 days. They knew the numbers were catastrophic. They knew the $50,000 flop. It was going to be the headline of the week. The decision for Meghan Markle to remain in Sydney, surrounded by luxury and high-net-worth influencers, was a calculated move to cut losses. In the brutal world of modern branding, Meghan Markle's team applied the principle of contagion avoidance, ensuring her image was not captured in the same frame as an empty ballroom or a husband described as devastated. The separation isn't just physical, it is strategic. While one side of the brand is desperately trying to sell vulnerability to a phantom audience, the other side is pivoting back to exclusive, high-society circles of luxury endorsements. But it is the scene at 1 a.m. on April 13th that truly captures the depth of this fall from grace. A witness at the hotel bar, a space usually bustling with elite travelers, spotted Prince Harry sitting alone in a darkened corner. He wasn't reviewing speech notes or checking the news. His eyes were fixed on his phone screen, which was playing a loop of old YouTube clips from the Platinum Jubilee and the 2018 royal wedding. This is the neo-realistic core of the Melbourne fracture. The devastation isn't just about the lost $1 million fee or the downgraded hotel room. It is the crushing realization of a man who has become a stranger in his homeland and a failure in his adopted one. In the royal videos, Prince Harry is surrounded by the ultimate security of a 1,000-year-old institution. In the hotel bar in Melbourne, He is a private citizen watching his own security bill exceed his earnings. The silence from Sydney spoke louder than any speech he could have delivered. It signaled that the United Front might be the next thing to be liquidated in the Archwell portfolio. As we look toward the final chapter of this Australian tour, the question is no longer about ticket prices. It is about the exit strategy. When the person you sacrificed everything for refuses to answer the phone during your most public failure, where do you go? The answer may lie in a series of frantic emails sent to a legal firm in London just before dawn, emails that suggest Prince Harry is looking for a way back to a life he once claimed to hate. As we reach the final pages of this investigation on the morning of April 16, 2026, the Melbourne fracture has moved beyond a simple failed speech. It has reached a terminal inflection point. The data we have analyzed suggests 3 possible trajectories for the man formerly known as a global powerhouse. This is the scenario tree, the cold, calculated map of what comes next when the spotlights finally fade.